Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way with me, April Yee, on Transformation Talk Radio. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care. I'm here to support you in getting out of your own way. So, what does getting in your own way look like? Well, how about letting other people define your value and worth, ignoring your body by not taking care of yourself, and people-pleasing? These are just a few ways I've gotten in my own way. In this show, I'll share new perspectives on self-care practices so you can discover options and choices for expanding what's possible for you and your life. In each episode, I have questions for you, and when you take the time to answer them, they'll help in building up your belief about yourself. I believe that when we get good with ourselves, we get good with our lives and the world. Get Out of Your Own Way starts now. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way on Transformation Talk Radio, episode 20. The concepts I talk about in each episode are things I wish I learned sooner to support myself and get out of my own way. So I hope these ideas are coming to you when you need them. And today I'm happy to have Ming Chen join me. And I know Ming through a program at Stanford through their Graduate School of Business. It's the Women in Management program. And we are both facilitators in that program. So there's a great facilitator community. And what we do is we hold groups for women who are in the MBA program there. And it's sort of like a support group for them. And so we each have our own groups and we meet every other week with our groups. And it's, for me, I know I found it to be really rewarding and inspiring. And so Ming is a fellow facilitator along with me and about 25 other women. It's a really great program. So I'll read Ming's bio. Ming is an executive leadership and career pivot coach, partnering with women from underrepresented groups to create more seats at the table or get the hell out of corporate altogether. She works with those at the intersection of race, gender, tech, and leadership. They're usually stuck in the margins of the workplace. They're usually the only woman and women of color in the room. Ming's focus is largely driven by her own lived experiences as an AAPI woman leader in tech, faced with gaslighting, microaggressions, conscious and unconscious biases, and generally the lack of support for women from marginalized communities in the workplace. She is passionate about championing her clients' strengths and fighting injustice in creative and humorous ways. She is a certified professional coactive coach, CPCC, and an accredited ICF coach, ACC, as well as a women in management facilitator at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. And before becoming a CEO and founder, she spent 20 plus years in tech, working in leadership roles in sales, strategic partner management, strategy and operations, business development, and global product partnerships. She led teams at Akamai, Comcast, and Twitter, and has taken startups to acquisition of 3X. So, hi, Ming.
Hi, April. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. And before we get into the main question I'll be asking you, how did you decide to do what you're doing today, being an executive leadership and career pivot coach?
It's a great question. And I think my own career pivot happened really during the pandemic. I think, like a lot of us, I went through quite a big existential crisis. What do I do with my time here on Earth? It is so short. Do I really want to be doing what I've been doing for the second half of my life as I've been doing for the first half of my life?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the answer was a resounding no.
Yeah.
Now, that said, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do, but I really had no idea what I wanted to do next. And so it was through a lot of help with friends and family and the support of my therapist to actually explore a different career path. And I happened to stumble upon a coaching class that my therapist had told me about. He said, the way that you are, the way that you interact with people, the relationships that you're so good at building, why don't you try your hand at coaching and see what you think? And so I thought nothing of it. I I thought, okay, well, I'm in tech. I have this wellness and learning and development stipend that a lot of tech companies provide. I'll spend it there and see if I like this coaching class. And so I took the class, and it was a life-changing experience for me. It
Mm,
was that aha moment that I needed. And it was much, much more about, oh, this is what I've been doing really my whole career, building relationships, understanding what people value, what's important to them, and fostering those relationships and helping people move forward. And oh my goodness, I get to do this as a career. That's incredible. And
yeah.
so the way that I felt in that class was enough for me to say, okay, I'm going to explore this a little bit more. Let me let me see what I want to do and if I want to do this. Because it was still scary, right?
Hmm.
Like what, I'm going to throw away a 20 plus year career and pivot and do something else. My immigrant and scarcity mindset would not allow me to do that. And so
Mm,
what I did was I did things in parallel. So I was interviewing for a bunch of other corporate tech jobs and in parallel doing additional coaching classes
mm,
and eventually getting into certification. And I'm so glad I did those two things in parallel because the stark difference between how I felt interviewing for these companies, I don't want to do this. My body's caving in on itself.
mm,
I don't want this job. And then on the other side, going, this is amazing. I get to be impactful and help people and provide them a service and something that they will value for the rest of their lives.
mm.
It was from that point a no brainer.
Yeah, it sounds like seeing those two dichotomies at the same time really showed like the contrast between what you were kind of thinking you should do versus what was really like lighting you up.
Absolutely. And that was the big difference is feeling how it felt in my body and my gut and my heart and not just in my brain was
Hmm.
that felt like alignment versus discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that you said your therapist introduced you to the coaching class because my therapist also was a big influence in me becoming a coach as well.
See,
Yeah.
it's your support system, it's the people in your lives that really who know you and understand you who are so helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm glad that happened for you. And so I'm interested, how have you gotten in your own way in the past?
Oh, in so many ways. I think the biggest one really is about this idea of having to be perfect
Mm,
or perfectionism and being the A plus student.
hmm,
And so, from a cultural perspective, especially growing up as an Asian American, it really was about excellence, right? Striving and being the best that you can be, which in some ways made me very successful.
hmm,
And it had a cost to it because I was following someone else's script. I was following someone else's template. And it really didn't allow me the room or the freedom or the space to explore what I really wanted to do. I thought, okay, this is the path that's been laid out, and I'll check all the boxes, and that
mm,
will lead me to success. And it did. And at the cost of my happiness, my well being,
hmm,
my feeling like I was living an important and impactful life,
hmm,
all of the things that come along with being a hyperachiever, burnout, resentment, feeling like I was on a hamster wheel all the time.
hmm.
And it's just rinsing and repeating and also living for vacation.
Yeah,
I don't want to live for vacation. I want to live a life that I feel good about all the time. Well,
right.
within reason.
Right. It's just, it's so, to me, it's so fascinating how much I can relate to your story because I have felt similarly in the past too, just with my job and with like the idea of like achieving and performing and having to do those things in a certain way so that for me, and I didn't know this until therapy and until coaching, that I was doing it because I had this underlying thought of I'm not good enough. And so I was doing all the things to like prove that I was good enough. And that was making me, that burnt me out. That created the health crisis that I went through that made me pivot in my career and my
Mm-hmm.
life, actually. So
Yeah.
when you were feeling this perfectionistic and like this need for like excellency, what did your life look like and how did you know that something needed to change?
So I think from the outside, it looked like I had it all,
Mm,
that I was very successful. I was making a lot of money. I was taking amazing vacations. I was able to buy, for the most part, anything I wanted.
hmm
And on the inside, it felt like, yeah, I have these things, and yet I'm not feeling fulfilled or satisfied in my life.
mm,
And there's a certain amount of guilt that comes with that as well, right?
mm,
Because on the external side, it looks like I have all the trappings of success.
hmm
And I know that. And why don't I feel happier?
mm,
Why am I not satisfied? Why do I not feel fulfilled? And
hmm
so internally, it felt, and I'll use this word again, discordant. It
hmm
felt like things were not quite fitting together like a puzzle piece, or pieces of a puzzle to make up a whole that I was quote unquote promised would happen if I checked off all of these boxes.
hmm
Right. So it felt very different than what I expected. And
hmm
then there's again the burnout, resentment, and but also not feeling like I could get off that hamster wheel. And
hmm
what you said about feeling like I'm not enough, that was a big piece of it. Right? I
mm,
have to constantly prove myself, because if I'm not proving myself, then what's my value?
mm, hmm
Uh,
Yeah.
and so looking for that value from extrinsic sources, success, money, blah, 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 and not looking at it from intrinsically what's important to me, which
Yeah.
makes all the difference in the world.
Definitely. And I know that, similar to you, like for me, I was looking up, thinking about success externally, like, oh, what does it look like? How do I present in like this successful ideal or whatever? But I wasn't asking myself what I thought success was, like what I
Mm.
felt it was. And so, in therapy, I definitely work through that. So for you, what does success look like for you now?
Mm. Success looks like freedom
Mm-hmm.
in terms of flexibility on my schedule, and me getting to decide how my time is spent and how I carve things out,
Mm-hmm.
having control of my work and my life,
Mm-hmm.
and having fun while doing it. You know?
I
Because that's
love that.
also part of what was missing, at least in my last job, a corporate job, was
Mm-hmm.
fun. Where's the fun?
Yeah. And you mentioned perfectionism. And so I'm curious, like, what role, if any, does perfectionism have in your life now?
Great question. It is a constant tension, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
As a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur, as someone who has a small business, I love being able to call the shots. I have
Mm-hmm.
independence, I have freedom, I get to delegate, I get to carve out how I want my days to look, I get to build a business from the ground up. And so all of those are very appealing to me. At the same time, that doesn't mean that I left my hyperachiever ways and tendencies behind.
Yeah.
I've just now applied it to my own work or my own business as opposed to someone else's business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do have to tell myself to rest, because as an entrepreneur, there's like a never ending list of
Yeah.
things that need
Yeah.
happening or need doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really being gracious with myself and knowing intuitively what my body is telling me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired, I'm distracted, I'm feeling like I need to rest. And so paying attention to those things. But yeah, it doesn't go away. I'm just now more aware of it
Mm-hmm.
and am better suited and have the tools to both recognize it and be aware of it and give myself grace. And also, back to your point about being enough,
Mm-hmm.
giving myself room to say, okay, I am enough.
Mm-hmm.
I am valuable whether I do or don't do anything today.
Yeah, that was one of the most important lessons that I learned. And it was from my life coaching school. Like my teacher, she was just like, you're already 100% worthy. So anything you do or don't do doesn't change that worthiness. And what if you could believe that 100%? Because it's
Yeah.
easy to say it, right? And it's like
Yep.
intellectually to understand that, but to embody it, it's a different experience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about having compassion, self-compassion.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but I love Kristen Neff's
Oh, yeah.
self-compassion. My
Hmm.
therapist also told me about
I think mine
about
too.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's first of all just being aware of it and
Hmm.
then going, okay, how am I talking to myself?
Hmm.
And is that serving me? And if so, how?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned where is the fun in your previous job and how, or in the previous work that you did. And now I'm sure you're having a lot more fun. So that also can kind of like blur the boundaries because the work that you're doing is fun. And like you mentioned, there's always something to be doing as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur. So I think like when you're having fun doing work, it's almost like it's not work. So you really have to have those strong boundaries with yourself of when you will be working and when you will be resting.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it sounds like you have been doing that for yourself, and maybe still there's like challenges around that.
Yes, absolutely. There are still challenges around that because, like it or not, I signed up for a 100% commission job
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur, right? So this business either succeeds or doesn't with me.
Hmm.
And the tension there is understanding that that is the case. And yet I don't do myself any favors if I give in to my perfectionist ways. If I
Mm.
continue hyperachieving and working 70-hour weeks, that doesn't help me in the long run because it's a pattern that I recognize, that I'm aware of,
Hmm.
and I know intellectually or rationally that that doesn't serve me in the long term. Getting the rest of me on board with that it takes practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now what has been the most challenging thing for you to like maybe balance or manage as like doing this career pivot? So I'm sure like, working in corporate, you could work 70 plus hours a week. And so now that you're doing this for yourself, like how has, that part changed or what has changed for you that you like now about what you're doing?
I think it is the freedom and the flexibility.
Mm,
It is, I get to decide what I do with my time. And again, with that perfectionism
mm,
element, there is a part of me that still feels I'm responsible for all of it. And so I have to do all of it. And so
mhm,
I'm trying to get better at delegating,
mm,
outsourcing, acquiring help where I need it, and not
mm.
trying to do it all myself because that's not it's not
Yeah.
sustainable or long term. It's not how I want to spend my time.
Yeah.
So where I want to be spending my time is in coaching. I
Mhm,
love coaching and I
mhm,
love one-on-one and working in groups. And if I want to spend my time coaching, who do I need to outsource? And I'm making this up. Who do I need to outsource building a website to?
mm, Mm-hmm.
because that's not my strong suit. And it
Mm-hmm.
will likely take me 8 hours to do it in
Yeah.
terms of opportunity cost. And that's
Mm-hmm.
8 hours I could have been coaching or doing a
Right.
group program. And so the trade-offs are such that, okay, being aware of where I need help or where I want to outsource things. But really, how I spend my time is coaching, but I don't start any coaching before 10 a.m.
Amazing.
And there are at least 1 or 2 days a week where I don't coach and I can do more business related things. And
Mm.
I rarely work past 5 or 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it.
Yeah.
It's the lifestyle that I want, and it's the flexibility and freedom and fun that I want.
Yeah. I love hearing that. And so, in if you could tell your past self who was struggling, and now that you have all this new knowledge and new experience and new ways that you're talking to yourself, like what would you have told your past self to help her while she was struggling?
It's such a great question, and I wish I could have done that at the time.
Yeah.
But I think I would have said to her, "You are enough.
Mm.
You have value, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're doing or not doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have value just in being yourself and
Mm-hmm.
being, and that's enough.
Yeah.
Um, and you deserve more,
Mm.
and you deserve better, and you are in control of getting what you want."
Mm.
Because I think so often in the past, I ceded control
Yeah.
because I thought, okay, here's the template, or some so and so is telling me
Mm-hmm.
this is the way it's got to be done, or
Yeah.
if we're
Or
dragged along by other people's ambitions.
right. And I was going to say, like, or we only thought that other people gave us opportunities
Yes,
instead of us, like, being proactive or taking initiative to, like, look for opportunities.
right, right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I would also say you don't need anyone's permission.
Yeah.
Well,
And you
it's your
mentioned earlier,
life.
yeah, I love that. And you mentioned earlier, there was a cost and you to checking boxes. So what would you tell your past self about that?
It's the safe and easy path because
Mm,
there's already a blueprint for it or a template for it. What would it be like if you dreamed? If you gave yourself space to explore what's really important to you and what lights you up? I would be my own coach.
yeah. And what would you tell yourself about the fear of that? Because, all of that sounds so good and so inspiring, but and you mentioned this earlier too, it's like scary. There's a sense
Mhm.
of fear of like I mean, throwing away is a little harsh because we've always learned along the way and we take those things with us, but it's so scary to just create a huge change in our lives. So what would
It
you
is.
say about the fear part?
The fear is there. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It just is. And is the fear trying to protect you from something? And if so, what?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you letting it get in the way of what you really
Mm-hmm.
want? Because
Mm-hmm.
you know you're unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
You know that this is not the right career path for you. I know it's scary to
Mm-hmm.
try to do something different or new or um, something that is not in your quote unquote wheelhouse
Mm-hmm.
and what you've done before. And yet you know that's not what you want. You
Yeah.
want something else. So,
Yeah.
and you can you hold the fear and still be brave enough to explore, at least start exploring a different path.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so powerful because I think that sometimes, and what's scary is that sometimes we think that if we even start to explore, it's like we'll have to change our whole lives. But we could explore slowly, take it at our own pace, just see what's possible. We don't have to make changes, even if we go down that route, but we can just see what's possible And then maybe we will want to make a big change after that. But I think
Yeah.
what's scary is like even the planting that seed of like, oh, things could be different for me, or I could change my life in a certain way. Like that in itself might be scary for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is because even if change is good, it is change regardless. So it is doing something different than your status quo or the homeostasis that your body and your mind is used to. And
Mm,
it's disruptive, but
yeah,
sometimes disruption can be a really good thing. And
absolutely.
so, yeah, giving yourself space, giving yourself permission,
Mm,
that's a big thing.
yeah,
But also, if you do make a change and it doesn't work, it's not fixed in time. You can always change back or do something else.
yeah.
And so there's this idea that when we make a decision, it has to be the right one.
Hmm.
And I would challenge that and say, well, okay, how do we look at it in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's fixed in cement and give ourselves the room to play?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that playing and like what you said earlier about exploration, that's really important just to broaden and widen what's like the realm of possibilities for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes culturally hard to do.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, what would have happened if our parents or my parents gave me room to play
Mm.
and to explore something other than STEM or other tried and true careers or positions?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like what you're doing right now is just like so aligned with who you are and your values. So it seemed to work out. I mean, understand you had to pay some dues in order to get
Sure.
here, but then it's like
Yeah.
you know the contrast now. So you know what it was that got you here. And it was kind of like in that constrained space. But now you get to like show yourself what's possible for you
Yeah.
and lead yourself in that way.
Yeah. And I'm going back to what you mentioned before about maybe it being harsh to say you're going to throw it all away.
Mm,
Because you don't, when you move, you don't throw your possessions, all your possessions away when you move to a new house
yeah,
or a new city. You
yeah.
take it with you. And
Hmm.
so I didn't throw away a career in tech. I brought it with me, and it has
Yes.
helped me, especially since most of my clients are still in tech. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you bring it
Yeah.
with you
I
and
love
you learn more skills.
I love that. That's such a great reminder. Is there anything else that you haven't talked about yet in terms of like perfectionism and how that, you know, shows up now or in the past that you'd like people to know?
I work with a lot of clients, a lot of women, especially women of color, who have been on this quote unquote success train
Mm,
and the perfectionism and hyperachiever
hmm.
train. And there are real consequences to that.
Yeah.
And there's a real consequence to mental and emotional health and well being. And I would say the sooner you can break that cycle, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And it sounds like the message today is if you want help in breaking that cycle, talk to Ming.
Yes, I'm happy to talk. Or if I'm not the right fit, I'm happy to refer you to. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ming. And thanks to those of you listening. I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of Get Out of Your Own Way. And to go even deeper, you can join me for Self Care Sundays, monthly drop in sessions. You can find out more at thehealingmodalities.com. And you can also sign up for my weekly Self Care Seeds newsletter there. And I'll put Ming's information in the show notes so that you have it and that you can connect with Ming if what she said resonated with you today. So join me again for Get Out of Your Own Way every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Next time on Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be having another guest join me to talk about how they've gotten in and out of their own way. So until next time, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Ming.
Thank you, April. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to Get Out of Your Own Way. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care with me, April Yee. Tune in every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. In each episode, I present new questions that support you in building up your beliefs about yourself. To connect with me or for more information, you can email me at thehealingmodalities@gmail.com or visit my website, thehealingmodalities.com. See you soon.